I convene the ICT Committee of the Law Society of Kenya. My professional qualifications, I have a bachelor's degree in laws and a master's degree in laws from the University of Nairobi. In the master's degree, I majored on intellectual property, and one of the units, or some of the units in that program was ICT and the law, and then telecommunications and the law. And I have also been able to engage in other processes of training, as you will see in my resume. And then when I was in the Judiciary Service Commission, I had experience, I gained experience in public service to do with human resource management, to do with finance management, to do with policy formulation, to do with oversight role, which is indeed what the chairperson of the IEBC would be doing, and of course stakeholder engagement and engagement of the public at large. And basically, that is who I am. On the other side, besides professional qualifications, I have personal attributes that are positive. I am a person of integrity. I am independent in thought. I am firm. I am a respecter of people and their rights and their opinions. I am a team player. I am patient, and I like seeing fairness being done in all situations. I am impartial, and I practice neutrality in any of the situations where I am called to arbitrate on issues between two people or more, or groups of people. I am reliable, and I am God-fearing.
Thank you, Mrs. Mwangangi. Yes, that is very good introduction. Some of the questions I was going to ask you, you've already kind of answered. I wanted to know whether you are affiliated to any professional body, which you have said, and also that the associations that you belong to, you have been in leadership in all those areas. The only thing is I would like to ask, if we were to ask them to give you a recommendation, would they recommend you for chairperson of IEBC?
I have no doubt that they would recommend me.
Yeah.
From my formative years of legal practice, I interacted with the ethics bodies nationally and at law society level. In my documents, you notice that the very first chairperson of the Ethics Commission wrote to me. That time I was a bar leader in Machakos, and he was seeking my support in fighting corruption amongst lawyers there. The Law Society appointed me for 2 terms in an ethics committee that was dealing with issues of lawyers and clients where there are allegations of malpractice.
Thank you, Mrs. Mwangangi. I would like to ask you, have you ever been decorated or awarded by the state, nationally or internationally, been given an award?
I haven't been decorated.
Yeah, neither have you been given an award, international bodies?
I have not been given an award other than just certificates of appreciation.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. I will now ask my colleagues to lead you in various questions, please. I'll ask Justice Baluto to lead a team, my colleagues, in discussing with you matters relating to IEBC technical proficiency and competences. That's what he will lead the others into. And Justice Baluto.
Thank you. Mrs. Mwangangi, why did you apply for the position of chairperson of the IEBC? And what, in your view, makes you equipped for the position of chairperson in this organization?
Thank you, honorable panelist. Why I applied for this position I'm being interviewed for is because I have a conviction that I can deliver what Kenyans now want at this particular time in the leadership on matters electoral. I have experienced the electoral processes and the laws, particularly in the Judicial Service Commission. I was one of the panelists who established the Political Parties Dispute Tribunal. And in the interviews that we did for the chairman, for the membership, and for the secretary and the staff, it called for appreciation of the constitutional provisions on electoral matters and also the statutes that we have. It also called for appreciation of the international instruments that inform our legal processes on matters electoral and generally on what is required of a leader, particularly in electoral matters. I consider myself able to discharge the enormous duty of chair of the IEBC because firstly, I'm neutral and I know there are many players and stakeholders in this process. And I am able to withstand pressure from any side and stick to the law because I believe in the application of the rule of the law and in it fairness, because that would be the guiding factor. And then, of course, I'll be able to make objective decisions when I'm called to as an arbiter of a dispute in the process of elections.
Thank you. From what you know of the IEBC, what do you consider are the challenges that face this organization? And if you became the chair, how would you solve them?
There are several challenges. To start with, we have quite a number of laws that provide for different aspects on electoral processes in Kenya. And there have been attempts to consolidate these laws into some more meaningful statutes to make reference easier. What I would say the challenges mostly have been would be to do with the structural setup, particularly of the IEBC. We do have a want of capacities on the staff. I know there have been issues on inadequate funding, and I know there are pitfalls, particularly in the processes of registering voters. It hasn't been very successful. There are also logistical issues, there are geographical issues, and then I know also there is the issue, of course, generally of the political arena in the country, particularly in the morning. At the moment, it is highly charged, and then you're supposed to operate to try and make parties that are warring seriously, to make them agree. And what I see is that if the IEBC is to deliver, there has to be, intention on purpose, and there has to be a strong resolve, not to be distracted by the noise around, but just to follow what the procedures that have been laid and the structures. I have looked at a number of the documents that the IEBC has prepared to guide it in delivering a free, fair, and credible election for this nation. Then you find that as they come with an operation manual, for example, or even a framework for results transmission, then you find there are amendments to the laws, so that then now they have to sit again and take stock of what they are required to do, what regulations they need to put in place and procedures so that they comply with the law. So there is that fast changing arena in the legal profession, the provisions that guide the process of elections, which is a challenge that has to be addressed. Then, of course, the issue of technology use.
As you know, we had problems in the elections of 2013. What lessons did you learn from those elections?
Thank you. The lessons that I learned from reading literature and also the cases that were filed in court and press reports is that, firstly, stakeholder engagement is very, very critical. because when you engage the stakeholders, the electorate, you engage the political parties, you engage the candidates, you engage the media houses, you engage the institutions that will assist in implementing the laws, and openly engaging them, then you find that a lot of problems will be resolved. Opaqueness is something that causes a lot of suspicion. There may not be even some evil designs, but when you are not open, particularly on matters that the public has so much interest in, then you find you have a problem. Now, in 2013 also, the issue of transmission of results, particularly presidential, there are issues that are to be learned from it because of failing technological systems that are put in place. And then you ask, was there enough planning in advance to deploy and make use of the ICT? About procurement, was it done in good time to facilitate deployment and testing in the presence of every stakeholder? And how far was the testing and deployment go? Did every polling station in Kenya, the 33,000 of them, did each one of them have BVR? Did it have the EVIDS? Did it have the electoral results transmission system in place? And so you find that if we are able to address some of those challenges, we can go far. And that way you'll be able to create credibility and trust in the body, because that is very core. If the public does not have trust in the body that is supervising and overseeing elections, then of course even the results, they will not have trust in them.
Thank you, Chair.
I will ask Mary Karen Keegan, Mary Karen Keegan, to ask you one question and then follow up with the other two questions. Please, Mary.
Thank you. Senior, boundaries delimitation is a critical aspect of IBC. As a chair of the IBC, what plans would you put in place towards preparation for the next boundary delimitations?
Thank you, honorable panelists. I believe that the Kriegler report is very clear on the issue of boundaries delimitation, because there was a feeling that boundaries delimitation had not been done fairly. And we know the principles that underlie the process of boundary delimitation, the right to vote, the universal suffrage. So when the Kriegler report brought to the public attention the need for fairness, for regularity in boundaries delimitation, and then of course for laws that provide for it, it was a wake-up call. And that is where you find when Kenyans came to do the Constitution 2010, it was one of the issues that was burning on the electoral matters side, that there has to be fairness in boundaries delimitation. Now, I know the last one was done in 2012, and the law provides for the process to be done not earlier than 8 years, and not later than 12 years, and not out of 12 months to the elections. So the next one is, if we go by the law, is likely to be 2020. If I was appointed chairman of the IEBC, what I would do to ensure fairness in that process, first is to have a proper population record or data of the people in Kenya, because you appreciate the process involves population quota, so that even as we look as to the size of electoral unit, we appreciate the people that are going to be served by that particular unit. And then of course applying the constitutional provisions, I'll be able to do a very fair job. And it starts with even educating the public and informing them and involving every stakeholder on that process.
Now, collaboration with non-state actors is very critical in civic education. in Kenya. Again, if appointed as a chair of IEBC, to what extent and at what point will you involve the non-state actors in this very critical function of the IEBC?
Thank you very much, honorable panelist. The issue of civic education is core in the electoral process because it is through it that you educate the public of their right in the Constitution, the political rights that I'm talking of, and also involve them. Because we are talking of even applying ICT in electoral matters. Does the public know what it all means? Does it know that it is their right to register as voters and it is their right to have a free, easy, simple, fair election process right from the registration through to voting? So what I would do on non-state actors, they are a critical part of the process of elections. And what I would insist as the IEBC chair is that they do not have it on their own. It has to be regulated, it has to be channeled through the IEBC, because all said and done, Article 88 of the Constitution gives the IEBC the mandate to conduct a free, fair, and credible elections. And the buck will stop with the IEBC if anything was to go wrong.
Okay, my last question. The registration and voting of Kenyans in diaspora still faces a lot of challenges. What measures do you put in place to ensure that those Kenyans in diaspora are registered and they vote in the next election?
Thank you, honorable panelists. That is one of the very critical sector or unit of the electoral process in Kenya. If you look at the register, the register of voters, the register for members of this nation, citizens who are living outside of the nation, is one of the sub-registers we can call of the 5 that are in the register of voters. And then again, under the Constitution, starting even with Article 1, going to Article 38, Article 81, they have the inalienable right to participate in the politics of this nation. And I've noted that Parliament has recently amended the law, the Elections Act, through Act number 36 of 2016. It has made provision for a progressive realization of the rights of voting of the people in the diaspora. And so there's no way but just to go by the law. So one critical issue that would have to be addressed is how then do we actualize registration of those voters? Firstly, there's a challenge because they are scattered all over the world, and there are quite a number of them who may be eligible voters, but again, who may not have regular papers in whichever place of the world they are living in. So the data as to the actual number of people, citizens of Kenya living outside of this country may not be exact, but measures have to be put in place, particularly the use of technology, so that we are able to access them. We would have, of course, to liaise with the missions and their embassies in whichever parts of the countries that we have, relations with, so that then we are able to see, we can take stock of those members. There was a time I was in Sydney and I had occasion to meet quite a large number of Kenyans who are living there. Some of them even traveled from Melbourne to come and meet us. It was a group they were interested in. And the first question they were asking is, why don't the government of Kenya facilitate our voting in the national elections? So that is a concern that I would have to address. It is one of the priorities I would look into.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mayor Karen. I would like to ask Professor El Said on the same line but differently to ask you another question on the area of
Yes, Madam.
professionals.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Professor.
IEBC has been faced with a lot of corporate governance problems. Now, what immediate steps will you take to rectify that?
Thank you, honorable panelists. Foremost, having served in a commission that is formed on the same legal framework as the IEBC, I have come to appreciate that if responsibilities and roles are not clearly defined, there is likely to be a drawback in the operations of that particular body. The first thing I would do, and I know there are some guidelines and policies in place, and then the law. The first thing I would do is to clearly have every one of the the staff and the commissioners understand their role. And from my part, I know that the commissioner's role is an oversight role, and it is to strategize and to formulate policy. Then those policies which are formulated and the strategies are being implemented by the Secretariat. And even within the Secretariat, I would go further and ask that I see regular evaluation and assessment of their performance. And I would ask for frequent reporting from the Secretariat to the board, to the commission, so that then we assure that the policies that have been laid and the strategies are implemented properly. And then, of course, I would also ask that this commission goes out of its way to interact with the public, to interact with the stakeholders, to interact with the political parties, the candidates, in a structured manner and in a transparent and open manner, so that the doors would be open to the public and any stakeholder who has a right to the services of the Commission.
Now that, Now that we have no commission for quite some time, and we don't know when the new commission will come in, the Secretariat seems to be running the show. Now, what will you do when you come back, if you are selected as the chairperson? How will you correct if there are any problems with that?
Thank you, honorable panelists. The first thing I would look at is the operation manuals, and then I would look at them against the law, starting with the Constitution, and then best international practices on the management of electoral management bodies. If I find that the Secretariat has gone overboard in as far as their roles and responsibilities and abilities is concerned, I would have to undo it. Unfortunately, it may result into some costs, because if they have gone, for example, and done procurement, which is improper and which is contrary to the law, it would have to be revised. But remember, if you look at the amendment to the Elections Act, number 36 of 2016, there are timelines that have been set in preparation for the elections 2017. So I would ask myself, the Secretariat has done this. Was it on any legal basis? And then what does the law now say? So that I'm able to stick to the law, and of course also appreciate the circumstances into which the Secretariat is operating. On what oversight are they operating?
Thank you.
Thank you, Professor. Mrs. Mwangangi, I will now take you back to what we were discussing before, and I think you mentioned a bit about it, the ICT. I'll ask Bishop Oginde to ask one question.
Thank you. If you could tell us, the country has invested a lot of money in technology and continues to do so. As chair, what is your evaluation of the challenges that have surrounded that whole system? And what would you do if you could give us 2-3 things that you would do to ensure that it delivers transparent elections? And number 2, what you do in case there are failures, whether small or big?
Thank you, honorable panelists. Technology is a very important aspect of the electoral process. If you look at Article 86 of the Constitution, the IEBC is mandated to make sure that the voting process is simple, accurate, verifiable, reliable, of integrity, and all that. And world over, technology has been applied almost in every field. And so it is something that we must embrace in our electoral processes. And that is why the law has been amended to incorporate the use of technology. I believe it's Section 44 of Act number 36 of 2016. But then again, technology itself has challenges, because even in countries which have progressed, which have developed, and on a higher level on development than us, they also face challenges. And what I would do is, firstly, the procurement of the equipment has to be within time. And the law has even provided, I believe, 8 months in advance before the elections. And then it has to be deployed and tested. And the testing is nationwide, to be done nationwide. And then again, with the involvement of the interested parties, the candidates, the political parties, international observers, the media, and different, even religious representation. So that if we are going to deploy the technology, it is something that is already tested and accepted by as large number as possible of the stakeholders. Then, of course, you have to train the staff that is going to use the technology because of the technicalities involved. So I would have to ask myself, how well are the staff that are going to use these devices? How well are they trained in the use of the devices? Then again, the public, because you're telling the public, I have this gadget. Just think about my grandmother, my grandfather out there, and I'm telling him, put your thumb on this gadget because it is going to register you. In 2013, we tried the BVR, and there was a lot of rumor, perhaps arising from non-information about technology. There was rumor that it was causing cancer, because the public out there does not appreciate the gadget, and they're seeing their thumbs and fingers are like burning because you see that screen. So I would have to ask for a lot of training, not just for the staff that is going to use this technology, but even the public itself. And the good thing about the Kenyan population is an enlightened population. Even without use of technology in the rural areas, you find most of the people will have a mobile phone. And that is one technology that can be applied to educate the public. There is a lot of FM stations. There are also FM television. The media would come in handy and would try and train the public and the staff. Then, of course, the commissioners, because there are quite a number who may also not appreciate the technology and how it is to be used. But all said and done, the idea is to have the elections done in an efficient manner and to create transparency and credibility, and so that the public can verify the results that are coming, because the process of registration was verifiable, the process of voting was verifiable, and the process of transmitting the results is verifiable. In the case of failure, there is a big challenge there, because I've looked at Section 44, Act number 36. I think it's 44, one of the sections. It has made it mandatory that 44 and 39. For transmission of presidential election results, it is mandatory that it has to be electronically done. Now, the difficulty would arise if it fails, and it is likely to fail because it has been seen to fail. I watched the elections in Ghana And even though they've come out successfully by way of transparency and the confidence the public has had in the processes, the ICT there failed. They made a fallback on manual records. But in Kenya, we cannot do that because of the law. I appreciate that is a matter that is in court, and I hope that by my answering the question, I am not breaching the law against talking about matters pending in court, but I have no doubt that the court will pronounce itself appropriately on that matter.
Thank you, Bishop Oginde, and also thank you, Mrs. Mwangangi. I'll now ask Canon Karanja, he's on this side, to ask you one or two questions. May I kindly request that you if you want to use some water?
Thank you.
Kindly, please do.
Thank you, I will.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Just take your water first.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I'm fine, thank you.
Now, the violation of the Electoral Code of Conduct in Kenya with impunity by both political parties and candidates is maybe the biggest blow to the credibility of elections. You seek to be chair of IEBC. If you got the job to be the chair of IEBC, what would you do to ensure that there is a change in this area, and what new insights would you bring to the enforcement of the code of conduct? When you speak to that, touch also on campaign financing, which also has a law that is more often than not violated.
Thank you very much, honorable panelist. Violation of the code of conduct. The Code of Conduct is in the regulations to the Elections Act, and it is supposed to be adopted by every political party in its constitution, under the Political Parties Act, under the Elections Act, even the Constitution. And when it comes to a breach of the Code of Conduct, it is a matter that the public is very concerned about, because you find that there will be the, inciting statements made. There are some instances of violence, instances of breach of the very many grounds that one would fall foul of if they acted in a particular manner. So what I would do as chair of the IEBC is to apply the code of conduct to the letter. If there is a candidate or a political party that is breaching the electoral code of conduct, I would be guided by the law, by the regulations, and then of course take the necessary action. But again, we also need to appreciate that compliance, voluntary compliance, is far much better than punitive or forcing people to comply, particularly by application of penalties in the law. So the first thing I would make sure is to study the constitutions of each political party to ensure or to satisfy myself that they have made provisions for compliance with the Electoral Code of Conduct. And then I would make engagements. I would engage the political party's leadership on one-on-one and impress upon them the importance of reining in their members so that we do not have breaches of that code of conduct. Now, if that does not work, then I would have no alternative but to apply the law strictly to the letter. About campaign financing, we have the Act 2013, Elections, Campaign, Financing Act. I know that the principle behind that particular law is very adorable, because it is about putting a leveled playing ground for every candidate, because we cannot let those who have money campaign and others who don't have money are not campaigning, are not getting votes. And then there is the aspect of bribery underlying it. The Philippines made it mandatory in their constitution that political parties' financing would have to be addressed and complied with. We don't have such in Kenya. But if you look at the Constitution of Kenya, when it talks of fairness, when it talks of equal playing grounds, when it talks of no manipulation of the voter, the principle is already adopted. And that's why now we legislated the Act in 2013. But now, to actualize that Act, you need regulations, you need procedures. And I know I've read in the website of the IEBC that they prepared the regulations, and the law requires that those regulations must be approved by Parliament. And I know that from the website still that the regulations, the draft is pending before Parliament. So if it is about management of the financial muscle of candidates, we have the law, save that we don't have the regulations to actualize it. So what I would do is, again, to be guided by the law. The law is the Bible or the Quran here. It is the one that would guide me. And then, of course, I would have to impress upon the stakeholders, and particularly Parliament, if it is given the mandate of legislating on the regulations, it is a matter of knocking on the doors of Parliament every other day and asking them, can we have these regulations passed? And if Parliament feels that there are issues about that act, again, it is within their mandate to relook into the issue, because then we have to have clear laws so that then we can have a clear pathway charting way forward in the electoral process in Kenya. But the principle is very good, is adorable.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Kanan Karanja. I'll now ask Ogla Karangi to ask you one or two questions, please.
Thank you, Florence. Just one question. Mm-hmm. The principle of two-thirds gender balance has, as you know, is embedded in our constitution, but we are yet to actualize it, especially in having more women elected so that we may reduce the burden on the taxpayers. What do you think IEBC need to do to encourage more women to be elected directly?
Thank you, honorable panelist. Firstly, I would start from the point we just stopped at with the other honorable panelist about making sure that the code of conduct is followed to the letter. Because when there is breach of code of conduct, most of the times you find there is intimidation, there is violation, particularly against women candidates. There is name calling, there is character assassination. And I would be on the lookout to make sure that that breach does not amount to disadvantaging the women candidates. Then, of course, I know Parliament also still has a duty of legislating so that that particular principle of not more than two-thirds is actualized. And that is another matter that I would want to engage Parliament on right from the word go. But then again, all said and done, there is civic education and there is civic information. I would go out of my way to engage the public in Kenya and tell them, you don't even have to wait for women to be given special seats. You can elect them. And we have examples of women who have given, exemplary leadership qualities to different parts of the world, even within Kenya. Why don't you elect them? Why don't you give them the votes and allow them even to ask for your votes and listen to them? So I'll do civic education to educate the public that the woman can be a very good leader if elected. And most of the time, the woman, being the mother, she's likely to take care of their issues. I don't want to say better than men, because men are fathers in the families, and they also take care of the issues. But women have been disadvantaged, and that is also together with the persons living with disabilities, the youth, so that there's affirmative action and we implement the Constitution in that manner. We can do it.
Thank you. May I now ask on that particular area, the last person on that particular area, Evans Munari, to ask you one or two questions. Evans, please.
Mrs. Mwangangi, currently across the country there is a lot of acrimony between individuals with regard to party nominations and just the back and forth, and this is across all parties. And we know that there is a law that punishes this sort of people, including disqualifying them. But previous commissions have not gone down that way, and they've let candidates just carry on into the elections, and the culture of violence keeps prevailing. As chair of IEBC, what will you put in place to see that candidates who commit offenses and require to be removed from the ballot are removed, so that there's discipline in even within parties as a campaign from now henceforth?
Thank you very much, honorable panelist. Stability, observance of the due process of the law, fairness, integrity is a very important aspect, because political parties, it's through them that we get the leaders that are elected. So I would start from the appreciation that there has to be stability, there has to be respect to the law and procedures in political parties. Now, on their nominations, and that is very core, and a lot of disaffection arises out of political parties' nominations. I would make sure that the political parties stick to their constitutions on the nomination selection of candidates. And I know that the IEBC has been given a role in the recent amendment to the Elections Act to carry out the process of nomination of parties. That would, of course, call for a lot of concerted effort on the part of the IEBC. And if you look at the Constitution, the Commission is mandated to regulate the process of nomination in political parties. And so if there's anybody who, after due process of the law, is found to have flouted their constitution and the law in the nominations, as a chair of the commission, I would not hesitate to mete out the disciplinary processes that are provided for in the law. And there are many.
Related to that, one of the issues that may impede the work of the commission will be the issue of court orders that are given by courts across the country when they are approached by individuals who are claiming that there's been a fundamental rights that have been taken away. Whether they are right or not, this may impede even the program of the IEBC going forward. What measures will you put in place to work with the courts to ensure that there is a smooth facilitation of the electoral process?
Thank you, honorable panelist. From my past experience as a commissioner in the Judicial Service Commission, I came to appreciate the operations and the workings of the judiciary. I was part of the membership that crafted the policies that are currently guiding the operations of the judiciary on matters electoral. The Judiciary Committee on Elections, we formulated the policy in the commission, and we were able to get membership to that committee. And The idea is to make sure that the court processes does not impede the will of the people on electoral matters. And I can assure you that the court system is very alert to the need on the ground at the moment on matters of elections and generally matters affecting this nation. Because if you look at the report of the Judiciary Committee on Elections, it is laying a lot of emphasis on expeditious disposal of electoral matters related to election disputes. And they are in a position to decline or to allow such orders as they deem fit. And we have to appreciate that the judicial authority, Kenyans gave it to the judiciary so that it has a free hand in exercising that mandate. But that same judiciary is very aware of the social, political, and economic needs on the ground and the importance of expeditious disposal of election petitions or disputes. But let me say something also about another tribunal that perhaps we may also need to think about, the Political Parties Dispute Tribunal. It is also playing a very core role in resolution of election-related matters. And so there would also be need to engage that particular tribunal and the stakeholders, and particularly Parliament, to equip that tribunal, to capacitate it, because as I indicated, I was part of the membership that set it up, and I know that the funding that they have or they were given is not sufficient to enable them discharge their roles. So those are matters that I would address, engaging stakeholders, and then of course application of the law.
Okay, just a final question, madam. There's been discussion and talk about having a parallel tallying process by political parties. What do you think about that? And how should we avoid a situation where different results are declared by different groups?
One thing I would assure the members or the public of Kenya is that if I am appointed chairperson of the IEBC, there are systems that have been put in place. And being on the ground, I would put in more systems to strengthen what's already on the ground to ensure transparency. I'm starting from this point because if you hear a party saying that they'll have a parallel tallying system, it's because they are not trusting what's already on the ground. They have their misgivings about fairness. They have their misgivings about transparency. So I would have to start by showing that it is going to be transparent. And if they are going to keep their tallies on the side, it will not be official tallies because the mandate lies with the commission. It would be their record, all right, and in the process of keeping their record, it should not affect the operations of the commission. And what I would do is every time the results are coming out, I would inform the public so that they see and they know, and even if they are to make comparisons with non-records, I'm saying non, that is the ones that would be formulated by parties on the side, then there would be no ground for questions. But again, you appreciate that there is also the role of agents, election agents. I would impress upon political parties to ensure that they have competent agents on each polling station so that then they are able to keep tabs on the results as they come out. Then they'll be able also to keep their record. In fact, this recording, most of the time in any elections you find it goes on, but of course that is not official. It's not the official record.
That'll be all, madam. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mrs. Mwangangi, and thank you, Mr. Monari. Now, I would like to just let us relax a bit. I'll take you to another area, and I'll ask Dr. Mohan Lumba to ask you one question, and Mrs. Olgla Karani also to come in before we move into another area.
Can you tell me Florence, can you tell me what's the difference between leadership and management?
Thank you. Now, leadership has something to do with strategy formulation. It has something to do with strategy direction. It has something to do with oversight of the body that you are a leader of. It has something to do with setting guidelines and then showing the people the way. For management, it is administrative. It is where the persons in management would be able to implement what strategy, to implement what policies, and then to make sure that the wishes or the designs of the leader are implemented and actualized.
As a woman, could you tell me the name of 2 presidents or leaders in Europe, Africa, and Asia? 2.
Now, in Asia, I'll start with Park in South Korea, although she is undergoing difficulties. She's famed. Just the name. Okay, thank you very much. That is Park in South Korea. We have Merkel in Germany. Maybe the pronunciation, but I know she's a chancellor, and we also have the other one in Europe, May, who was elected prime minister just the other day. In Africa, we have Salif of Liberia, I think so. Yes.
That's all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Alumba. Now, Ogla Karani, please.
Florence, what lessons do you think we can learn in Kenya from the just concluded US and Ghana elections?
Thank you. About the US elections, the ground is still not settled. I know that Clinton made a petition of some sort, and which hinged on relook into the electoral college votes. And then also we looked at the public in the United States of America, a very old democracy. After the results, they went to the streets for quite a while. They didn't want the outcome of the results. So what we learned is that in Kenya, we have had even worse scenarios, 2007, 2008, PEV, even 2013, disaffection, and even in the other years. So what we need to learn is that even when it is a fully developed economy, like the United States of America, matters electoral need to be handled with a lot of care, with a lot of keenness, with a lot of transparency, and with a lot of accuracy. Because the ICT system in America was very viable. And at times I saw there were some issues even on the use and as to the credibility of the outcome of the results. There's no telling. If you look at the state of California, where there was a lot of support for Hillary Clinton, and it was expected to catapult her, to get her the electoral votes that are required, it still did not clinch her the seat because of smaller, states. So I would have to, the lessons is that we have to involve every sector of this nation because it counts in matters electoral. Every vote, every sector counts, no matter where it is. It has to be brought on board for the satisfaction of the members of the nation. Then, when it comes to, there was some part, a second. Ghana, thank you, Ghana. Yes, Ghana did elections just the other day, and it was actually under new IEBC, which is led by a lady, Madam Asoi, and I looked at the appointment of that commission because I am concerned about the fairness of the process. and if it, gives the body credibility. And I saw that she had been appointed, the commission was appointed, she was appointed by the president on the advice of the council. Now, I looked at the composition of the council, and I'm finding that it's like a council of elders. And I went further to see what is the representation of these elders. Does it capture the wishes of the majority in the nation? And apparently, they appreciated that that is a commission that could give credible results in Ghana. And what that commission did in the process of the elections, it went out of its way to engage the stakeholders on one-on-one. The political parties on one-on-one. It opened its gates wide to the public. And that way, the public gained confidence in the body. And then when the results were announced, even though they were delayed because the technology failed at one point and they had to fall back on manual records, the public still was patient. And that is something maybe as Kenyans we may need to learn, so that we can try and trust our systems. Once we put credible systems in place, we be able to trust that those systems will deliver a credible result. And of course, the system is not complacent. The system is going out of its way to tell the public that things are all right and we are an open book. This is what we are doing. Just read us, and where you have questions, raise them. We have answers. Let us engage.
Okay, thank you, Madam Ogla, and thank you again. We'll take some water because we are going to another area of discussion.
Thank you.
And we definitely... Mrs. Mwangangi, I know as a lawyer you are very well informed of the Chapter 6 of the Constitution.
Yes.
It's on leadership and integrity. I'm therefore, very briefly, because we agree that we'll manage time, and therefore, very briefly, I'm going to ask my colleagues to lead you into discussion in this area in connection with the application for this position of chairperson of IEBC.
Thank you.
Is that okay?
That's okay, thank you.
So I'll ask Bishop Oginde and my other colleagues to lead you into this discussion.
Thank you. Madam Florence, if you could tell us your understanding of the chicken gate and how you would prevent such an eventuality, and should it happen, how you deal with it as chair.
Thank you, honorable panelists. The chicken gate was a scandal. I think it is still alive. But there were allegations that the members, outgoing members of the commission, received favors from some company that was printing or engaged to print certain material to do with the work of that commission. One thing I would ensure is that much as I am engaging all stakeholders, including the business people from whom the services are being procured, because if you look at a body like KEPSA, it's a very important part of the stakeholders in the electoral process. They comprise the business people, and even internationally. I'll make sure that I am dealing with them, but very professionally. There are procurement laws and procedures. They have to be put in place, and the procurement has to be done transparently, so that I also allow the dispute resolution processes in the procurement laws to take place. And then the other thing I would make sure is that the public is involved of every stage of this procurement. I would not be expecting even the public, all of it, to read the website of the IEBC. I would go out of my way and use the means of communication they are available for every part of this country to know that at this point this commission is procuring, and we have advertised for this kind of material, and these are the closing dates. We close. When we close, we open. These are the people who have applied, who have tendered. These are the people who have qualified in the tender, who have answered to the tender advertisement. Now we are going on to evaluation stage. The evaluation committee has found that this tenderer has competence in finance, in technical issues relating to what I'm procuring, and they have recommended 1, 2, 3 companies. From there, I go to the tender committee. I inform the public the tender committee has set, and the appointment of the tender committee, and make sure what the committee is very transparent. The tender committee has evaluated, it has, on the advice of the evaluation committee, awarded this particular company the tender, so that the public moves along with me on that process.
Second part of the question was, what do you do having taken care of that, but you find it still happened or is perceived to have happened?
Thank you. What I would do is, I indicated there are processes of dispute resolution under the procurement law. There is the review board, which if there's a candidate who participated in the tender and feels that the award was not fair, there's a timeline they're supposed to make application. That also I would communicate to the public. And from there, I would also tell them there is also the court. After the review board makes a decision, and you have to do it within this given period. And then, of course, the court would make its pronunciation on that matter. Then that would open the way for the process to go on. Because once the court finds itself, finalizes on determining the issue, then there would be no other issue but just to proceed.
Let me just follow that up a bit, Chair. Whereas Chicken Gate had to do with procurement, we do know that the compromise, corruption, does not just happen in that area. You could find that a candidate, political candidate, has compromised some of your officers so that they can win the election. You as chair, these matters have been brought to you, and so how do you deal with that situation so that you maintain the integrity of the commission?
Thank you very much, honorable panelists. Yes, the integrity of the entire commission is critical. And the secretariat or the staff is the one really that implements the decisions, the policies. It's the one that does the procurement. And there would have to be evaluation. I would also create a kind of a system that would be like intelligence collecting system, without making the staff feel like somebody is on their back looking at what they are doing. And the intelligence is very important in any establishment, and because it is going to bring out if there are any malpractices on any of the staff involved in the procurement process. Then again, I would also have an open policy with the public, because really there's nothing you can hide. The public would have some idea that this particular member of staff is not acting properly, is involved in inappropriate conduct towards particular sections in the procurement process. And so I would definitely apply the due process of the law. I look at the contract of this particular staff, and it has provisions for dismissal on the basis of gross misconduct, and I would apply it.
Thank you. Have you ever faced a compromising situation? How did you deal with it?
Whether I have faced, yes, I have. I'm part of the society. I indicated that I was a member of the Public Complaints on Environment Committee, What it does is, if there's a complaint about environmental degradation, the committee goes out to the field to investigate that complaint, and we traversed the better part of this country, all parts even up to northeastern. And in a number of instances, you find the people who degrade the environment are companies, big businesses. Yes, they are doing production of material, and there's smoke all over, there's dust, there's everything. So in a number of occasions, I would go to investigate with my team, because I had a team of fellow committee members and then secretariat, technicians who are supposed to give technical reports. And we would get into factory after pleading for access. Sometimes we have to seek assistance of the police, because we have to investigate just what is happening inside that factory. And so the persons, some of them, would give us water, and it is okay, we would take water, because we would be thirsty. And then after we take for water, we have a discussion with them and tell them why we are there, and we show them the complaint we have and what we want to do. Open the gates even to the industry. We want to get in and see whether you have put in place mechanisms to ensure there's no environmental degradation. Then they would say, hold on, we are coming. We're looking for the keys to whichever warehouse, to whichever part of this. We are bringing you helmets, because you can't go in there. We appreciate, we'll be given helmets. But that's not exactly what they would be asking for. When we come back, after going round, we tell them, we have seen that the complaints may have a basis. Can you give us your explanation? We go and make our reports. They say, okay, we are coming. They go in, and then I see an envelope is brought here. Madam Chair, on your way back, please take some soda. Say, no, thank you. We have taken water, and I believe you're not selling the water to us. We won't take that, because we have to do justice. And that did not happen just once, several occasions, because of course the punishment would be huge. Polluter pays it all, and the fines under the Environmental Management and Coordination Act are very punitive.
Thank you, Bishop, and thank you, Mr. Mwangangi. May I ask Kano for one question, please?
Thank you very much, Chair. Mrs. Mwangangi, the call for the chair of the IEBC is really strong leadership. If you could set out for us the features and qualities that make a person stand out as a courageous leader, and then go over your life and give us a few examples that illustrate that you are such a leader.
Thank you. Thank you, honorable panelist. Foremost, the leader must be a team player, because you're working with a board. You should be able to tolerate the different opinions, and you should be able to make use of the positive opinions for the betterment of the board. The leader must be patient. The leader must be a keen listener. The leader must lead by example. The leader must exercise fairness. The leader must be firm. Even being compassionate, but firm, because matters have to be done, and at times doing matters may call for some resistance. But the leader has to lead the way, and the leader has to be independent and impartial. And if you are able also as a leader to engage the board that you're leading, to engage the staff that you're leading, then of course apply the qualities that I've mentioned among others, you will make a good leader. In my professional engagements and even personal life, I have had occasions where I've had to exercise a number of those qualities. The one example I've just given of the leadership in PCC, there was a time we went to investigate a case of complaint in Kilifi, and it was almost the town was ablaze because our factory had been licensed to change the nature of the beach where the fishermen were fishing their fish, and most of the fish, most of the turtles, and all the mangrove were being uprooted. And it called even for a public baraza. I had to ask and organize for one with the mayor then in Mombasa, so that we have a public forum to be able to cool the tempers of the public. And I was able to stand firm and show that even though the developer is bringing development there, it is not being done in the right way, because it is endangering the lives not only of the marine, but also the livelihood of a big number of the fishermen there and their families. In the Judicial Service Commission, I was also called upon to exercise my leadership qualities. I headed a number of the panels, some of which were dealing with disciplinary issues. And some of these touched on people that I had previously interviewed for judgeship, and people who are colleagues, because like Honorable panelist Mary Kagan, Honorable Evans Monari, we are all the same profession. And so even when you come to working together, required of the facts put before us, even when it affected people that I had otherwise known in professional life. And so those are some of the instances, and I could cite quite a number of others, particularly in my leadership role.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Canon Karanja, and thank you, Madam Mwangangi. There are going to be very few questions. Some you have answered them already through the answers you have given to the other people. However, I'll still request that they ask short questions, and I will ask Professor one question.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Honorable
A successful
panelists.
Candidate for the position of chairmanship must be a patriotic person. Do you consider yourself to be one? Can you give us some examples of instances where you can prove that patriotism?
Thank you, Honorable panelists. I am patriotic, and I know in the heart of my heart that I have no other allegiance to any other nation but Kenya. And one thing I would want to see happening in this nation is Kenyans taking care of Mother Kenya or Father Kenya. Because all said and done, it is in our palms to make this nation great. And it starts by appreciating the principle of patriotism. I have served, even without pay, the nation because of the love of the nation. And the nation comprises of, the family going up to the society. On community service, I have been able to offer my services in my church, the Catholic Church, where I have been a matron for the youth, working with them. And the youth have different needs. I've gone into my pockets to finance some of their needs. I've also been able to give service to my professional body, which has a mandate of assisting the government, particularly on the, formulation of appropriate legislation and ensuring that, there's accountability in various of the public institutions. And that one is for no pay. And I have certificates of appreciation of service to that sector, because I have to get an entry point to serve the nation. And so I would say that if I can deliver, because I would give relentless service, and of course in compliance with the requirements of Chapter 6, that there is selfless service from me. And I would regard the people I'm serving as my employers, and I am their employee, not the other way around.
Thank you.
Thank you, Professor. There are two small questions, but maybe they have even been answered. I'll ask Dr. Lumba. He has no question because you have answered one of your answers, you have answered his question. Justice Mbaluto, do you have any?
Maybe I can ask.
Just yeah.
Mrs. Mwangangi one matter. Mrs. Mwangangi, what do you consider? Sorry, what do you consider to be your greatest achievement in life so far?
Thank you, honorable panelists. Foremost, in life, I am a mother, I am married, and I adore and respect family values, because the family is the smallest unit of the society. And so I have succeeded in bringing up a family. And I consider it is a family where there is peace. It's a fallback for me. Every time in the evening I'm tired. Professionally, I have given service to this nation, firstly as a lawyer, even for pay, is service to the nation, because it is honest service, and it has assisted many members of the nation to resolve disputes, a number of them amicably. But again, I've also done pro bono service, service without pay. I have served FIDA for no pay. I have served Kituo cha Sheria for no pay. And that way I have accomplished in serving the nation in my professional line. Then again, I've also served in the leadership of this nation, and particularly as a member of the commission, in the Judicial Service Commission, because after the promulgation of the 2010 Constitution, the judiciary had to be, so to speak, given life. There was a skeletal kind of operation of the judiciary, and today it is not the same. And we started, those who were elected first, from zero, and laying down policies and appointment of quite a number of judges, appointment of magistrates. We revamped the Kadhi's Court. We were able to bring in staff in the judiciary, and that way we assisted in the leadership in government through that arm of the government. And I indicated also public service in... Thank you.
Is there anybody with a burning question that you... Professor?
Yeah. You being the chair, chair of the commission, and then within the commission, there are other commissioners who are not agreeing on certain issues. How will you treat that?
Thank you, honorable panelists. The board, the commission ideally should operate through consensus on most of the decisions. And that is how you're able to hold the confidence of the public without going public with squabbles or disagreements on particular issues. So the first thing I would advocate for is decisions by consensus. And I have experienced this in the Judicial Service Commission and also in the Public Complaints Committee on Environment, because you are only one among equals, being a chair, although you are offering the leadership guidance. So you have to move with the team, the board, in addition to the staff. And if now there are members who are of a different opinion, I would go out of my way to speak to each one of them, even if on one-on-one personal engagement. And I know there are also mediation processes. I can approach a particular commissioner even through a friend that maybe they may listen to that friend in a better manner than myself without breaching the rule of confidentiality on the operations of the commission. And that is why I said working as a team and me being a team player, I would not foresee a lot of difficulties. But because we are human, if it reaches a point where the fellow commissioner does not see my way, there are processes of discussing the matter at hand and taking record. There has to be clear paper trail of the discussions. And then I would note the dissent by that party or by that particular member. And then I would proceed to ask for a decision now of the majority. You'd have to go by the decision of the majority in such a case. And that, of course, would be the decision, would be the final stage.
Thank you.
If there are no more questions, I would like to move to the next stage of our discussions. Mrs. Mwangangi, you are a lawyer, so I want to recognize that. And in your discussion, you have made it very clear to us that at all time, you will look at what the law says to you when implementing certain issues, isn't it? This panel before you was nominated, put together by a team of various organizations, and also given a law under which we operate. And that law is the one we have been using, and we continue to uphold that law. And we promise the general public that we will remain transparent, the way you said, at all times. But whatever is dictated in the law is what we will implement. And we want to remain accountable to that level. One of the things that it demanded from us and which we appreciated very much, it says, the law says very clearly that once you have put out an advertisement and people have applied, please let the public know who has shown interest in the positions you have advertised. In our second advertisement of the chairperson is when you put in your application, if I remember correctly. And as such, we put out a list of 36 people who applied. All of them, regardless of whether they were qualified or not, we just said these are the people who showed interest in our second advertisement for chairperson of IEBC. After we did this, it is the law which dictates that we shortlist people from that particular long list, and we shortlisted you. The law further says that you must ask the general public to give you views whether these people you have shortlisted are suitable for the position that you are looking for the position of IEBC chair. At the same time, we wrote to various government agencies, including ethics and corruption, all of them, to ask, do you have any views on the 5 candidates that we have shortlisted in this second re-advertisement we did? And they have given us their views. However, in one of these memoranda, we have received something about you from the general public. Is it general public? Yeah, from the general public, who have written to us a memoranda signed by that organization. And this, I'm not ambushing you. I want the media to know that I'm not ambushing you. We have brought this to the attention of Mrs. Mwangangi before she walked into this room. Is that correct?
That is very right.
Yeah, my colleagues here came to you and discussed it with you.
True.
Yeah. We would like, I would like, as chair of the panel, to ask you in the presence of everybody, this is a matter you are aware of. Would you like us to discuss it in public or in camera?
The matter that has been brought to my attention, I want it discussed in public.
I take it that Mrs. Mwangangi has requested that whatever has been written to us in connection with her application as chairperson of IEBC be discussed in public. In light of that, I now ask a colleague of mine, Dr. Bishop Oginde, to summarize what it's all about. And very, very briefly, you respond to it. We will not ask you any questions about it, because all we do is read to you, and briefly you tell us your answer to it, and that is what we will use the information if we want to. That is our mandate, and therefore I now ask Bishop Oginde to summarize what we received about you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, we did meet with Mrs. Mwangangi, and we read to her the memorandum that was sent. We did not discuss it with her, but just brought it to her attention. And just to remind you what the content of that memorandum is, it has come from a group calling itself the International Policy Group. And it is signed by one Dr. Kenneth Otieno, who is the chairman of that group. Their concern is that they make observation that Ms. Florence served as a commissioner in the Judiciary Service Commission, and that while serving there, the Public Accounts Committee of the National Assembly did some investigations regarding the use of finances in that particular commission. An audit, a special audit, was done in May 2014, and then it was found that the commissioners, including Ms. Florence Mwangangi, were paid irregularly for a meeting that they did not hold on the 19th of July 2013 because there was no quorum. This group further say that according to the report of the Public Accounts Committee, they adopted the audit report, which they then presented to the National Assembly, and the National Assembly adopted that report. And the report said on page 136 and recommended that the various commissioners of the JSC, including Ms. Florence Mwangangi, must take personal responsibility for allowances paid to them irregularly. Therefore, according to this group, if Ms. Mwangangi participated in this irregular payment, which was approved by Parliament, she cannot qualify then to serve as chair of the IEBC. They still aver that should we go ahead to appoint her as chair, Parliament will find it difficult to go against its own findings and to overrule itself on a matter that it has already pronounced itself about. And so they recommend that in view of that, we should not, or rather, Ms. Mwangangi does not qualify to be appointed as chair of the IEBC. Thank you.
Mrs. Florence Mwangangi.
Yes.
Yeah, as you said it before, it's now that it's important that we take seriously what the people outside, or the general public, whom you will serve as chair, isn't it? It's good that you will take into account what they write to us and bring it to your attention. I will really ask for a very, very brief response to that. And the rest is not for you, it's for us ourselves. We know what to do after that. Mm-hmm. This is a matter which has come to us after we shortlisted you. And we have had a wonderful conversation. So please, could you respond to what my colleague has read to you very briefly, please?
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson and the panelists. The matter was brought to my attention, and why I opted that I answer in public is because my conscience is very clear. I was not paid for a sitting that did not take place on the 19th of July 2013 when I was a member of the Judiciary Service Commission. I also was not called at any one point before Parliament to answer, before the committee, PSC, to answer on this allegation. And I have looked at the PSC report, I've read it, and I also noted that what they said, that the commissioners take personal responsibility, they added that let there be investigations by the respective bodies that do investigation in cases of this nature, ESCC, the DPP's office, generally, CID and so on. I have never been called before any of those institutions to answer to this allegation. And if I was called, I would have a good answer to the question. The reason is that what would happen in JSC is that one day you could have even up to 3 meetings. You scatter the time, because we came in at a time which was the formative stage of the judiciary under the 2010 Constitution. There was massive recruitment to be done. There was infrastructure to be put in place. There were many policies to be put on the ground. And so it called for meetings, even at times up to late in the night. I remember we would sit even up to midnight. But the payment would be only once, because we said it amongst ourselves, we are going to be paid for only one sitting, even if you sit 3. And so what would happen is that because there has to be attendance in that particular meeting, you would have your name recorded as having appeared in that particular meeting. And if you're called upon to sign, you would sign. But the signature, only one of the 3 or 2 would be used to pay you. And I have no doubt, not even an iota of doubt, that I was never paid for a sitting that I did not take part in. And I wasn't paid double for any sitting in the Judicial Service Commission. And I just want to reiterate that I am a person of integrity. I've practiced law for over 25 years, and I've not had any run-in with the law as far as my conduct, personal conduct, is concerned. So I would suit well in serving this nation as the chair of the IEBC. I uphold the principle of integrity.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Mwangangi. It's now, I wish now to bring to the end to this discussion, and the first thing I would like to ask, do you have any questions for us or a comment? Just as brief word, please.
I would just thank you very much for having given me the opportunity and listening to me. I felt at home. Ordinarily, the seat of interview, that is where the interviewee sits, is normally hot, but I didn't find it hot because of the way you conducted the interviews in a very friendly manner. I commend you for that, and I thank you. I don't have a question.
Mrs. Florence Muoti Mwangangi, thank you for your kind comments, and we are happy that you felt at home. Please take some water as you leave, but for now I want to say this to you. You know that we have shortlisted 5 from the first advertisement, and then 5 from this re-advertisement. So we have in total about 10 people that we are talking to. As we are sitting here right now, we don't know whom we are going to pick on, or which names are going to be picked on, and henceforward then the chair for IEBC. Whatever the circumstances, I just want to put it on record that you are giving already a lot of good service to this nation. Please continue in the same spirit, and continue to uphold the law, and above all, being patriotic, as you have explained. We want to wish you as a panel all the best in your endeavors in every way. And you may leave, and please take the water with you. Both of them are yours, so you can take one on your way out. Ensure that you have all your documents with you, because we have looked at them, all of us, and the gentleman behind you will be able to help you take the documents out with you. Thank you very much for coming and for being very patient with us.
Thank you.
We have enjoyed the session very
Thank
much.
you.